it says firefighting. It's not a course on firefighting, but we're all fighting some fires in our business every day, right? And so we want to help you think about ways to go beyond fighting the fires every day. David and I have both been down this journey before, and we know what it's like. So we want to share what we've learned to help get you past those days. And speaking of David, I want to introduce my colleague here, David Aferiat. David is a 21-year entrepreneur, rock star in the fintech space, also in the import business, in some champagne, and he's a great guy to bring to a party. So he can tell you about your finances while we're enjoying a nice glass of champagne bubbling. Also, like myself, a Bloom Growth coach and public speaker. And David and I are both in EO, which is the Entrepreneurs Organization, longtime members here. David was recently a chapter president here in Atlanta, and also co-chair for the 600-person NERV conference that we just had in Atlanta last year. So an amazing entrepreneur, amazing guy, and a great family man, and I am honored to call you a friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know how to top that, but I'm going to try. I'm joined by a dear friend as well, by Aaron. And Aaron also was a former president from the South Florida chapter, a chapter almost 3 times the size of Atlanta. And he's now moved to Atlanta, but his pedigree is pristine. He was the CEO of a very successful marketing agency that he grew for 22 years and then sold successfully. He is an integral part of the organization that we just mentioned, Entrepreneurs Organization. The threshold for many of the entrants into chapters all over the world is about $1 million revenue generating company. And when you join this, you're peers among others and learn together in a way that's impactful to your business. I joined about 12 years ago. Aaron's a 14-year member, or 15-year, and serves on the global leadership. In addition to being a chapter president, he has designed a lot of the structure that entrepreneurs across the world benefit from. And so it is an impactful aspect of how we're able to stand in front of you today and take the experiences of growing our companies and bringing them into a way to go from fires to flourishing that we want to share with you today. So again, thank you so much, Aaron, for walking this journey with me.
Yeah, and along our way, we've learned how hard it is to scale a business and what it actually takes to be on the other side of that and to really light the fire to do that. And one of the things that we both found was a growth system was one of the things that really was the key to helping us unlock that and getting out of the way of the business so that it could grow as part of that. And so along the way, we both won Inc. 5000, which is fastest growing companies in America multiple times, Best Places to Work awards. And so we've been in the trenches with you. We know what it's like to do this. But we want to get to know you.
Yeah. And that helps us with some examples and everything else. I mean, it's a lonely road, being an entrepreneur, being the one where you can't necessarily talk to an employee. It can be hard to talk to friends who don't get this journey that you're on. It can be hard to even share with a spouse or a life partner, even to other business partners. So we want to respect, and you should be extremely proud for what you've created and where you are on the journey. Helps me and helps Aaron, though, to understand a couple of things. First thing I would probably say is, who here has 8 or more employees in their organization? Okay, couple, great. Who here has a $1 million revenue generating business? It's okay. Okay. Who here has revenues of 500,000 or more? Who has 250,000 or more? Okay. All right. Well.
And who is a solopreneur just kind of getting started?
Who's getting started? Solopreneur.
Got it.
Okay. This is going to help because there's resources within this ecosystem that is Bloom Growth that we'll talk about, and you'll walk out of here with some concrete value as to taking that next step on this hero's journey that you're on. And like every hero and the journey, who you find in terms of allies, the community that you use to recharge yourself and to share, even the utility belt that you wear, and that you get along the way, including a guide or a mentor, is essential if you're going to make this journey not something that's alone, but to do so with a destination in mind, right? Okay, so
So let's ask you, what fires are you fighting currently in your business? What's something that kind of keeps coming up over and over again? Here's a few examples of like not really quite having a clear vision, or maybe you're the bottleneck that you might be starting to realize that like maybe that was the biggest lesson I think I learned, was that when I looked in the mirror, I realized that I might be the biggest issue to the growth, just because I kind of had a stranglehold on the business. I was like, every decision must be mine. And that was, once I realized that it didn't have to be that way, that's where things started open. But I'm just curious, what are some of the things that you might think are fires you're fighting? Talent?
Which one, talent?
Yeah, we'll get to,
Sorry, just want to capture, that's a huge one, talent.
yeah. In what way? What's that look like?
So finding people, I guess, you're the boss ultimately, and you have to stay on top of people. And I guess it depends on what industry you're in. And so I come from a background where I'm used to telling people, HR, what they need to do and them doing it. But if they're not your employee, or if they're not getting paid super high, if they're like a contractor, or they're not getting paid super high, then they don't really care about the job. So you really have to stay on top of people to do the thing that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Accountability.
We have a ton of books up here, and so the first one here, you get a book, but it was tied. So, gentleman in the back here, let me.
Managing all of the different types of technology offerings that we now presenting. There's AI, there's all the different types of technology. Now you have to push through all of that stuff on your own.
Totally.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
weird.
How many people have completely figured out how to implement AI in their business? I'm still working on it myself.
Yeah.
It's a moving target.
Great. Tech, AI. Anybody else want to throw some? Rudolph.
Non-repeatable growth engine.
Non-repeatable growth engine. Oh, I pulled one from the board there. Do you have a book already? Did I give you one earlier? No. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's like. Go ahead.
So what is that? Tell me a little bit more about that. What is non-repeatable growth engine? How does that show up in the business for you?
Making sure I have repeat customers.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Retention and repeat.
Target,
Yeah.
incentive.
Like who's the right customer and how do they keep generating more business for you instead of having to keep getting new ones?
Remind them,
Yep.
because they are the competitors in the area. Yeah.
Go ahead, my friend.
Improving a location acquisition. Well, like so a second acquired location, improving that.
So the challenge there is you're saying finding it or absorbing it or.
So we acquired a second location, but getting the right people in there and then having your systems in place, and then also just implementing the new things that you want to do and being very efficient.
Onboarding and acquisition. Okay.
And probably a little bit of process too, right? Making sure that what's happening at this location is also happening at that location the way you want it to. When you can't be in two places at once.
Yeah, and then getting rid of old ways and implementing the new ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a great list. We could keep going, right? There's no shortage of pain. Go ahead. Fine.
Yeah, trying to translate like independent research that's really contrary to a lot of conventional norms.
How does that show up as a challenge or a pain in your? Is it you're paralyzed with decisions or you're?
It's just a challenge for me because I'm just doing it now. And like how I go about reintegrating and essentially translating it to wider audiences. That's where I'm a little bit stuck.
So is it a data issue or a communication issue? Communication issue. Okay. Communicating. Okay. Now you're all alone there. No one's ever had that problem. Right. Right.
Just out of curiosity, thank you all for sharing these things. Anybody hear something in somebody else's challenge? They're like, oh yeah, I got a little of that going on too, and right, like, and that's part of the whole thing is that we're all dealing with very similar issues. When you look at the way most businesses run and grow and scale, the challenges and the opportunities are oftentimes, regardless of the industry that you're in, they're very common, right? And that's really the design of what Bloom's all about. And so one of the things I'd like you to do is a little quick exercise with me, if you wouldn't mind. Close your eyes for a second, and what I'd like you to do is point to where you think north is. Like, where is north? So, no? Any idea? All right. So just keep your hands pointed. Keep your hands pointed. All right. Open them. Look around the room. Keep your hands pointed. As you're growing your business.
Thank God we're not in a Waymo, right?
Yeah. As you're growing your business and you're building and adding people into the team and trying to get everybody aligned, by the way, true north is here. That's where north is.
Figures.
Right? But the room was all over the place. And so the idea is to make sure that your plan, your vision that you have for your business is being communicated so that everybody on the team is pointing in the same direction. And then as you start to actually implement a system, the system helps make sure that people stay pointed in the right direction over time. Because it's one thing to like kind of point the picture and go, hey, we're all going over there. And then 2 weeks later, people are pointing all over the place again, right? And so that's really the intent behind these operating systems, is to keep people pointed in the right direction over time.
I'll add my little point here, that before we had these arrows that were all in a stream, and then you had others, the last one that was kind of converging, right? You can build systems and hold people accountable individually. You got to do this, you got to do this. But as you scale, you need a team around you that does the business of scaling, so you no longer become an employee in the business, you start working on the business. And when they start, that convergence is meant to say that we're not individually going after our own individual accountabilities for what we have to do in marketing or in sales. But when you have a system, and at the leadership level of a company with a system like this, you have finance talking marketing, you have marketing talking about sales, and together you solve problems that get you to a destination a lot faster. Because communication is informed, it starts to go through the organization because everyone's aligned, and it creates, which we have here, this kind of infinity loop that the Bloom Growth system that we use as a framework to just access all the experiences. As a coach, we bring all of our experiences from 40 years of growing companies into this methodology and across these 8. One of the biggest things the reasons why I do this, and I know Aaron as well, is that had we had coaches of our caliber back when we were building and growing our companies, we would have gone a lot farther and a lot faster. I had $1 million valuation for my company, and our Inc., multiple times on the list, spoke to a lot of growth. But what motivates me is that I get to channel all my experience into a framework like this, and then find companies where I see on the path and being able to say, I know how to supercharge where you're going, right? And whether you do this with a coach, whether you do the framework and study it yourself, I think there's a lot of value that you'll get from just learning more about how a business operating system looks at the business of running a business so that you can do what you do.
What I'd say is, when I started my business, I was a freelance designer working from my bedroom. I had $6,000 in savings. And my business plan was pay the mortgage. That was the whole business, don't go out of business was the business plan. And I didn't update it for 10 years. I just kept growing and going and selling and grinding and it never really, I couldn't scale the business. I got it to this point where it hit this ceiling and I couldn't figure out what was keeping me. And again, that's where I was sort of sharing earlier, is I realized I was the one that was keeping it in this box because it mattered to me so much. It was my birth, bread and butter, my whole life was tied up in this business. And that's how we often get as entrepreneurs, is it's everything. And so I couldn't let go of anything. But it also kept me from being able to really grow. And after 10 years and almost, getting to $1 million, I wasn't really making any more money than when I started. I had $1 million business, but it wasn't very profitable. And I was working just as hard as I was working, maybe technically more. I think people, quit jobs to get the freedom of entrepreneurship and end up working 80 hours a week. So the point is, when I found that there was a different way of thinking about operating and running the business, that's when things really started to change. And what I would say is there's 8 components here that are kind of the essentials that we think every business needs to ultimately implement at a high level to give yourself a high grade in all of these components to really unlock the potential of your business. But if we're at the early stage of the business, where do you start? Which one's the most important one on there, right? I would say start with the growth plan. The growth plan can be a very simple, it doesn't have to be a 20-page slide deck and written by an MBA. Our growth plan fits on one page. It's what do we do, why do we do it, and how do we do it? It's where do we ultimately, like in 5 years, if I could really have everything I want from this business, what would that look like? What would it feel like? All right, let's back it up. What's 3 years of that look like? All right, now let's go to what's a 1-year version of that 5-year picture look like? And then what happens is you start writing these things down and you get to the 1 year and you can actually start maybe putting some numbers to it and saying, hey, that would probably be $500,000 in revenue. But what if we actually had $100,000 in profit from that? And what if I didn't have to work, more than 40 hours a week? Or whatever those numbers are that kind of let you know you're on the path. And then what you do is you start going, all right, in order to get that to happen, 90 days from now, I need to make these 3 things happen more than anything else. That'll make me sure that I'm on the path to getting there. And what happens is you start building a team, you share that plan with them. And if you have someone that's helping you build the business, you write it together. Because they're invested then in helping you both see this plan come to life.
Yeah, if you're onboarding and if you're acquiring a company or if you're bringing on a new employee, I can't tell you how many times so much of this relates to personal life, but I have kids, and when I was raising them, it would be like, I couldn't leave them in the house alone. So it's like, kids, get in the car, we're going, and I'm the man with the plan. I had the idea, like where 3 stops we needed to go and when we were going to get back, but I would take these poor kids and throw them in the car, and it wasn't until I kind of slowed down, and I would expect everywhere they go, they're resisting, they're crying, they're pulling teeth to move them around. Once I actually treated them like people and we're like, hey, we got some errands to do. I obviously can't leave you in the house. So we're getting in the car. We're going to make 3 stops. On the 4th stop, we're going to get ice cream. And we're going to come home. We won't worry about dinner, whatever. We're just going to have a good time tonight. Are you in? I can't leave you at home. Do we agree I can't leave you at home? Yes, we agree. Great. Can I have your commitment that if we do these 3 stops, we'll have ice cream at the end? Yes, great. I have agreements. I have commitments. We go. That's what the plan is, right? And better, like as Aaron was saying, if you can attach what a 5-year vision for your plan is and one number, you start to create something that's larger than yourself that others who join can subscribe to. My software company we help people trade in the stock market. And when we got to the granular level of how people use our software, we'd have a photographer in Florida who would supplement, wedding season by trading in the stock market and making better decisions. And a kid who was starting a soccer academy because he would trade and earn income and then do it to impact youth in his neighborhood. It's like, these are powerful stories. And if we could reach 100,000 people like this, God knows what kind of impact we'd have with people making better decisions. We would use that to say, now we have a 5-year vision to be 5 times the size we are right now. And we have a vision to help people make better decisions in their lives so that they can benefit from the market and do what they need to do in life.
Yeah. And on the people side, it's rare to find out AI's impacting that, but I'd say even with AI, people make business go. It starts with you, but it's everybody that you bring into the team that ultimately is going to make a difference. And so as you start to first identify where it is you're going and maybe how you might start to get there, then you could start to imagine what are the kind of people that we're going to need in this business to help me make that happen. So it's not just on my back to get there. And so part of this process is then taking that step, not putting names in boxes, just figuring out what are the kind of capacities and roles of the people that you're going to need. If you're building a sports team, there's a different role for every player on the team, right? And if you're playing baseball, there's a pitcher, there's a catcher, there's an outfielder. Everybody's playing a different role for a different reason. Well, there's only one coach, one leader of the team. Everybody else is playing a part. And so part of this is really starting to think through, if we want to get here, and then starting to make those key decisions. Who are the most important people I need to focus on next? And keep adding to the team that way. And again, if you've got some people around the table already, take everyone's name off the box when you do this exercise. And just say, what would the company look like 2 years from now if we were double this size? Who would need to be in this room with us today, fighting this fight with us, fighting these fires with us? Let's start thinking about who those people are now. and build a plan.
You want to blow your minds here. So on my org chart for my own coaching practice, there's me, there's an executive assistant, there's a couple of VAs, and then there's an AI. I have AI on the org chart. And it's related to social media. It's the copywriter, right? And then the human supervises what's done, and then it's published. But we live in an age where the staff and people that you could be having, you could have an AI receptionist. You could, how and where do you want as you plot your growth? And it comes down to, where does revenue flow through this org chart, all right? If it's flowing through me, we've got to get me out of that. And then who? And that who can be part of a chain of processes that start with AI, end in AI, come in the middle. But it's a fascinating time we live in where AI can be on the org chart.
So again, a lot of us being early stage in businesses, these are probably the three most important things that I would start out of the gate with, right? So first, it's where are we going? Generally, how are we going to get there? And what's it going to look like when we get there? Who's going to help us get there? And start building that team around us so that we can make sure that we aren't stuck in that every decision-making seat. But then it's the cadence. It's communication that's happening on a regular basis. So how many people have regular business, weekly business meetings with your team? Few, right? The way those meetings go is the way your business goes. And for 10 years, I ran really bad business meetings. It was me walking in the room with all the ideas and all the decisions. And rarely did we talk about the decisions as we talked about last week, because I was onto some new idea and some new book I read or whatever, right? And so the inconsistency of the meeting is one of the things that really slowed our momentum down. We've talked to so many people today, and we always ask the same question, well, what are you interested in here? Growth? Well, again, part of the growth in the loss of momentum is in the way that we're having communication within our companies. And so the way that you structure these meetings matters. You want to talk a little bit about the Bloom meeting?
Yeah, even if you're a solopreneur,
Yes.
especially if you're
Yes.
a solopreneur, because the worst conversations that you're having aren't with customers, they're in your own head, right? And you have to stop the stories you're telling yourself. And if it means running a meeting in the software that comes with this ecosystem, even if it's in front of the mirror, by talking it out loud, it is the natural sunshine and sunlight that disinfects crazy things that are in your head bouncing around that don't make sense until you say them out loud. Again, I have a very skeleton team, but when we have sometimes it's just a meeting between me and my executive assistant. We will run the meeting so that everything can be said out loud in a way that says, I just said that makes no sense, and I recognize that, and the other person in the room is like, that doesn't make any sense. So the worst thing on the lonely journey of being an entrepreneur and building a company is keeping the conversation to yourself inside yourself, right? The meetings are almost a psychological way of saying, I've said it out, I've put it out there in the universe. There's a witness, there's another VA or executive assistant, whomever. If you got 3 employees, if you have 2, even if you truly are a solopreneur, then get a board of advisors, just someone to say, I need you to sit in and listen to my nonsense for an hour.
Yeah.
As I go through what the growth plan is related to the thing I need to do this quarter to move the business, achieving my 1-year plan. And in this quarter, you get 4 quarters, you get 4 chances, 4 initiatives to move the company to a place you want to be a year from now. One of the questions we both ask is, think about for yourselves in the past year, did you get everything that you hoped from out of the business? Did you get everything that you hoped for from the business this year? Give yourself grace if you say no, to say, well, was your target a moving one, or did you actually have a stated goal at the beginning of 2025, and you either legitimately came short, or you didn't have a goal and you were just moving the signposts? And we should all be very proud of what we achieved this year, even if it wasn't everything that was, and we left something on the plate. But a growth plan can put what that number will be for next year, or what those initiatives are for next year. And you get 13 weeks and 4 tries to do that.
Right.
This coming year. The meetings help you stay focused on those.
Yeah, the meetings are where you get to make promises, sometimes to yourself and sometimes to one another, as to what's going to get done between now and the next meeting, and also check in on, hey, how are things going? Right? Are we on track? Are we off track? And just having open, honest conversations about it. And sometimes, if you're truly a solopreneur, set up an AI, a ChatGPT, whatever your flavor is,
Now you're getting
and have
fancy.
that be your partner to kind of check you in and run your meeting, schedule it, and have it with ChatGPT. You just check in on yourself. Another thing that I do is I've got an accountability partner. We have a call every week. We hold each other accountable. It's somebody in a completely different business, and we just talk once a week to just, hey. And so sometimes that's all it takes is just kind of getting out of your own head and out of your own way to move the thing forward. So these are what I would start with as the first 3 key things to focus on. All of the other stuff will fill in. The Bloom Growth journey covers all of these things. Sales and marketing. A lot of people think in order to grow, I got to focus on my sales and marketing first. And you do have to focus on sales and marketing, but it's not the only thing. But there's a way to get, discover faster, easier ways to find and keep customers and help your customers help you find new customers as well too. Making sure that you're measuring the right things. There's so much data available to us today, but most of it's not helpful. So we're not making good decisions on clear data. So trying to figure out, distilling down, what are the essential things that actually tell me whether we're on track or off track?
If I can, Aaron, I mean, we can talk more about all this. Is there a slide after this?
No, just our closing slide.
Okay. A couple of things. One, feel free to come up to the front here and grab a book. Our book, Flourish, written by our colleague Todd Smart, is the blueprint of how this ecosystem works. And it's ideally for these companies that have teams and that need to scale. And if you're not quite there yet, it certainly paints a picture for you. That's the framework. The Bloom Growth ecosystem is also a software, as we mentioned, about running a meeting. And feel free to talk to us about a trial that we can give you to the software for 30 days. It is the mechanism it's a timed, very disciplined way of coming together, having your growth plan come alive each week, and tracking your progress. And then, of course, if it's within your desire, methodology, the software, and then the coaching engagement is on your hero's journey. How to, every Rey needs a Luke Skywalker. Every Luke Skywalker needed an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Every, Wonder Woman needs an Amazonian tribe. And this is the kind of guides and mentorship that we bring into this ecosystem. One more announcement to make. Up at the top of here, we have in this glass block is a QR code. On January 6th, Aaron and I will go, instead of a half an hour here, we'll actually go an hour into the Bloom Growth ecosystem and help you set up learn more about the rest of what we weren't able to cover today. And it's also will be a kind of more give and take, and we'll also have lunch. And it's at a Rome, which is like a WeWork Rome on Peachtree Street, right across from Lenox in Buckhead in Atlanta. Right, so scan this QR code to register for your spot. And any closing thoughts? Just thank you so much.
We appreciate you being here. We really do. Our passion is helping other entrepreneurs not step on the landmines that we found on our own, so that you guys don't, you can avoid those pitfalls as well too. So let's stop putting out fires and start flourishing.
That's right. Thank you.